Hey there, I'm Josh Wilson, and today I'm reading 2 John 1:6. Love means doing what God has commanded us, and He has commanded us to love one another just as you heard from the beginning. I love this verse because it reminds us of the two most important commands, right? To love God and love others. If you're like me, maybe sometimes that feels overwhelming. It seems big and lofty. Okay, so I've got to love God and I've got to love people. How do I do that? I sometimes get overwhelmed thinking of all the ways that I'm supposed to be doing that. But I want to share a story with you of just a very practical way that God showed me that I could love my neighbor. It was a while ago, back in 2010. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and there was a 500-year flood that hit our city. And there were 10,000 homes that were underwater. Multiple people had lost their lives. Folks had lost everything they owned. And I was overwhelmed. I was praying to God, saying, God, please send help to our city. We need so much help here. And, thankfully, my house had not been hit and all of my friends were safe. But I knew people who had lost everything. And I was so overwhelmed with all that had to be done to start rebuilding Nashville. And I was praying, God, please send somebody, please send somebody, please send somebody. I realized after a couple of days of praying that, I realized I was asking God to help, but I wasn't doing anything myself to help. And I sensed that God was telling me, I am going to help and I am going to send somebody. And you're one of the people that I want to send to help. And I just thought, well, that makes a lot of sense. Love God and love people. And so I called my friend Steven, whose basement had been flooded, and I said, hey man, what can I do? And he said, well, I'm tearing out drywall today. I could really use some help doing that. So I drove over to Steven's house, put on some work gloves, and started tearing out drywall. It certainly didn't change the world or even our whole city, but it changed his trajectory and at least his day. And I literally was able to just get my hands dirty doing something very practical that was right in front of me. And so when I read this verse, love means doing what God has commanded us, and He's commanded us to love one another. Sometimes it just is the most practical thing. It could mean tearing out drywall at a friend's house who's been flooded. It could mean picking up lunch for a friend. It could be words of kindness or encouragement to somebody who needs them. But I just encourage you to look just right in front of you. What has God placed in your life today in this moment? What small act of kindness can you use to show God's love to others? Sometimes it's just something really practical, and I'm thankful for that. So I actually wrote a song about that experience. It's called I Refuse. And sometimes when I feel overwhelmed with what I'm trying to do in attempting to love God and love others, I remind myself of what that song says, which is, I can't do everything, but I refuse to do nothing. And I actually re-recorded that song and released it this year. It's an old song, and I did a reimagined version of it that's just released. And the reason I did that is because it's meant so much to me over the years. And it's always a reminder that none of us are called to do everything, but we're all called